New York is the largest city and the most important in North America. It is a chief port and the most densely populated city with a population of about 8.9 million people in 2020. The city is made up of a large number of skyscrapers. Skyscrapers are very high buildings with numerous stories where people are able to live, work and do their shopping and other activities without leaving a building. A skyscraper is almost like a self-contained town. New York City is also famous for its ethnic diversity, manifesting itself in scores of communities representing virtually every nation on Earth, each preserving its identity. Little Italy and Chinatown areas of New York date back to the mid-19th century. When the first settlers arrived from Europe, the whole continent of North America had a population of only 1 million people, who were then known as Red or American Indians. African Americans from the South began to migrate to Harlem after 1910, and in the 1940s large numbers of Puerto Ricans and other Hispanic Americans began to settle in what is now known as Spanish Harlem. Since the 1980s, New York City has undergone substantial population growth, primarily due to new immigration from Latin America, especially the Dominican Republic, Asia, Jamaica, Haiti, the former Soviet Union and Africa. History of New York. The region was inhabited by the Lenape Native Americans at the time of its European discovery by an Italian, Giovanni da Verrazzano. European settlement began with the founding of a Dutch fur trading settlement, later called New Amsterdam, on the southern tip of Manhattan in 1614. In 1624, there was establishment of the first permanent settlement on Manhattan Island by the Dutch. In 1626, Manhattan Island was purchased from the natives for goods worth $24, equivalent to about 40,000 SHS. And for protection, there was the building of a battery of guns and wall around the settlements, especially on the southern tip of the island. These to date remain the most important sites in New York, where we find Battery Park, Wall Street. In 1664, the Dutch colony of New Amsterdam was conquered and surrendered to the British and was renamed New York after the English Duke of York and Albany, with a population of about 1,500 people. By 1776, the year of the American War of Independence, the number had risen to about 30,000, but New York was still smaller and less important than either Boston or Philadelphia. 1825 was the year of the opening of the Erie Canal. This gave New York a cheap route to the interior and an edge over rivals. 1861 was the beginning of American Civil War, and the population grew rapidly, and by 1880 had reached 1 million. Between 1814 and 1914, over 30 million immigrants settled in USA. Many of them entered through New York and settled in Manhattan. Since then, New York has continued to grow and today is the largest North American city. In the 1920s, New York City was a destination for African Americans during the Great Migration from the American South. The Harlem Renaissance flourished, part of a larger boom time in the Prohibition era that saw construction of dueling skyscrapers in the skyline. New York City became the most populous city in the world in 1925, overtaking London, which had reigned for a century. The difficult years of the Great Depression saw the election of reformer Fiorello LaGuardia and the fall of Tammany Hall, after 80 years of political dominance. New York lies in the southeast corner of New York State at the mouth of the Hudson River. It has a land area of 368 square miles or 953 square kilometers, and therefore it is the largest city in the United States, and one of the largest in the world. The city of New York is divided into 5 areas called boroughs, each coextensive with a county. Each of the borough is a county of New York State. The 5 boroughs and neighborhoods of New York City: Manhattan, Brooklyn, Queens, the Bronx, Staten Island. The Bronx is New York City's northernmost borough. Except for a small piece of Manhattan known as Marble Hill, the Bronx is the only section of the city that is part of the United States mainland. Brooklyn is the city's most populous borough and was an independent city until 1898. Brooklyn is known for its cultural diversity, an independent art scene, distinct neighborhoods, and a unique architectural heritage. The borough also features a long beachfront and Coney Island, famous as one of the earliest amusement grounds in the country. Midtown Manhattan is the largest central business district in the United States. Manhattan is the most densely populated borough and home to most of the city's skyscrapers. Manhattan is loosely divided into downtown, midtown, and uptown regions. Midtown and uptown Manhattan are also divided by Central Park into east and west sides. Queens is geographically the largest borough and the most ethnically diverse county in the United States. Historically a collection of small towns and villages founded by the Dutch, the borough today is mainly residential and middle class. Staten Island is the most suburban in character of the 5 boroughs. It is connected to Brooklyn by the Verrazano Narrows Bridge and to Manhattan by the Free Staten Island Ferry. The Port of New York, which is now centered on the New Jersey side of the Hudson River, remains one of the world's leading ports. The Port of New York. New York is situated on the island of Manhattan, on the Atlantic seaboard. It is sheltered from the Atlantic by Long Island and Staten Island. These islands are connected by a series of bridges or tunnels. The city extends across the Hudson River to Jersey City, across Harlem to Bronx, and across the East River to Long Island. On approaching New York by transatlantic liner, passengers are first brought into the lower bay between Sandy Hook on the New Jersey mainland and Rockaway Beach on Long Island. To the north, this outer harbor is restricted by the westward thrust of Coney Island, New York's nearest seashore playground. New York City is located on the coast of the northeastern United States, at the mouth of the Hudson River in southeastern New York State. The city's geography is characterized by its coastal position, at the meeting of the Hudson River and the Atlantic Ocean in a naturally sheltered harbor. This position helped the city grow in significance as a trading city. Much of New York is built on the 3 islands of Manhattan, Staten Island, and Western Long Island, making land scarce and encouraging a high population density. The Hudson River flows from the Hudson Valley into New York Bay, becoming a tidal estuary that separates the city from New Jersey. The East River, actually a tidal strait, flows from Long Island and separates the Bronx and Manhattan from Long Island. The Harlem River, another tidal strait between the East and Hudson Rivers, separates Manhattan from the Bronx. The city's land area is 321 mi squared, 831.4 square kilometers. The highest point in the city is Tot Hill on Staten Island, which at 409.8 feet, 124.9 meters, above sea level is the highest point on the eastern seaboard south of Maine. The summit of the ridge is largely covered in woodlands, as part of the Staten Island Greenbelt.